Welcome back to Scale Auto Guys Workbench. Today I'm building this AMT 1950 Chevrolet 3100 pickup. It can be built one of two ways, either as a stock truck or a service truck. On the box art here they show a service truck, which is really neat. Now, I didn't find a parts count on the box itself, so we're just going to have to figure out how many parts are in this truck as we go. As you can see on the back here, there's quite a few, and a pretty large sized decal sheet giving you quite a few options. That's going to be nice, and some of the features of the truck. So let's take a look at what came in the box. First up is the cab. At first glance the cab looks pretty good, but there are some spots on the cab that need to be cleaned up. But overall, for an AMT kit, it looks pretty good. Just a little bit of time with the sanding stick and that'll be all set to go. Here's your frame, and this too is full of flash. Normal. It's not a big deal. Like I said, take a sanding stick to it and you're all good to go. Here's your interior tub. Has separate door panels, so that'll be nice, so you can detail paint those pretty easily. First tree is your seat and interior pieces. The big hood. That's a big hood. So interior parts. Next up is your front and rear suspension parts, and a visor that goes on the roof of the truck, and your wheels, stock wheels. Either way you go on this, it's going to be stock wheels. Here's your rear fenders and running boards. Next tree is your engine and front fenders, inner fenders, radiator. All your engine parts are on that. Next up is your bed floor and door panels. I told you those are going to be easy to paint. Tailgate bed sides. This even came with these are side rails for back here on the bed. They have a kind of a grainy texture like wood. It even gives you a wooden push bumper. And I'll show you something in just a second that goes with this. Next up is your chrome tree. That's pretty bright and shiny. Where did that go? Oh. Next up is your clear parts. Has your two tail lights and a whole bunch of service amber lights. So they give you extras. That's cool. And if you have any other projects that those will work on, now you have some spares. As usual, I don't take that kind of stuff out of the plastic. Next up is the ginormous the huge decal sheet. Now this is where those wooden side panels that I showed you earlier, that's where these come into play, so that you can have a faux wood look on the side of the bed. And as you can also see, they give you quite a few different service companies that you can turn this truck into. So that's kind of cool. Next up is your tires. Now, like, you can do it as a white wall or as a black wall. These are just skinny bias ply tires. These would be nice. Either way, even as a service truck with white walls back in the 50s, that was the thing. So the last thing is the instruction booklet. This thing is rather thick and several pages here. Whoa. As usual, oh my gosh, they have a little history on the truck itself, and then goes on to show you how to build it. I have not made up my mind exactly how I want to do this, if I want to build it as a service truck or as a stock 3100 pickup. I do have 2 of these, so I could build 1 of each. Which one I'm going to build first, I don't know. But let's get some cleanup done, get some sub-assemblies done, and then we'll head over to the paint booth to get some primer thrown down. And I may have to go looking for some paint. I have the blue and I have the orange, but it's not a flat color. Yeah, we can do that in metallic. Why not? Nothing saying that we can't. Anyway, we might just do that. Let's get started on this. Okay, fellas, I skipped ahead a little bit, as usual. I've got the engine about 99% complete. I had to touch up the paint on the air cleaner. Other than that, it's done. And I'm waiting for that paint to dry to install that part. I've also gotten the wheels and tires done. As you notice that they have a rear tire and a front tire. So I don't know that it makes any difference when after you put the hubcaps on there and put it on the axles. I don't know that it makes a difference which tire goes where, because honestly they all look the same at the back. So if you get them mixed up, no big deal. I'm going to try to keep them, you know, these on the front, these on the rear, and we'll have to, oops, sorry, didn't mean to bang you. So I'm thinking I'm going to wait until I install them on the axles to put the wheel covers on. That way there, at least I have some notion in my head that I got the right wheels in the right places. So, what's next, you ask? Well, let's put the front and rear suspension on the chassis, or on, should I say more to the point, on the frame. Here's our frame. Let me get this out of the way. Oh, it's also a good idea to have an assortment of Sharpies and gel pens for pretty much any occasion. The reason why I say that is one of the white walls, the pad printed white walls on one of the front tires, I forget which one it is. I think it was that one. You can see right in this area here where I had to touch it up because it was scratched from the manufacturer. So I didn't have anything to do with it, but I had to fix it. No big deal. No big deal. Okay, well, that's the bottom side of the frame. And pardon me, been a long day so far. I been working on a lot of stuff today. It's been a long day. So, okay, these are side directional, they're not just universal. So, to make sure I got the right ones going to the right place. 42 is the right hand spring. What I like to do sometimes is, instead of just snipping them all off and trying to put them, you know, I have a pile of them, parts laying there and going, well, okay, which one goes where? I like to, a novel concept, put it on one piece at a time, because I have in the past, and I'm sure you have too, made the mistake of snipping all the parts off the trees and going, okay, these are different, which one goes where? And then it's a guessing game. You eventually get it right, but until then, it's a guessing game. And this is what I like black Sharpies for. It's just touch up those little tiny spots so I don't have to get the paint out to fix it. Okay. Now the guessing game begins, because I don't see any holes. Oh wait. Problem with spray painting your frames and stuff. You cover up all the holes. Okay, dig the paint out. Let's see where this rides. Should have a little. You'd think that they would have a little block on the side because it's supposed to go in that little notch in the frame, or maybe on the frame itself. Oh. I am stupid. The holes that I dug out are for the shocks. These do right on the frame, just like that. Okay. Time to go into high speed mode. Alright fellas, I skipped quite a ways ahead. I went ahead and finished up the rear suspension, got the tires on, and let me tell you, I am not impressed with these tires and the way they mount. Everything is put together as it should be. The tires are, well, I should say the wheels are glued to the axles the way they should be, but here's what you get. You get these floppy tires, so the whole thing is just sloppy. I hate that. The tolerances should be way closer than that. So in the final, if you see the tires are a little out of whack, that's why. Now I'm going to try to display it with the tires sitting flat and even, but I can't guarantee anything. I did get the front tires, front wheels on the front and the rear wheels on the rear. Another thing that's got me a little perplexed is how tight it was between the rear axle, the transmission engines, where it's supposed to set, and this radiator. Now, with the hoses in place, the radiator sits at an angle. It's not straight up and down, and I'm not sure if that's going to give me any trouble when I go to put the cab over top of the, onto the body, or onto the frame, I should say. So, got this one last little piece to put on here, and then we're on to the interior. Okay, I went through and painted all of the interior parts, and I'm putting them together. The door panels are separate. You saw that earlier. Based on some reference pictures that I looked at on the internet, your door panels basically match the body color. I did a little bit different color on the floor. I'm right now putting the pedals and stuff in, and I wanted to show you the dash. I got the dash kind of done, and the seats, and of course the firewall. This has been pretty interesting so far. It's been kind of neat because I don't normally build 50s style vehicles, so not that I'm not familiar with them. I kind of grew up around them. I mean, they were old cars when I was just a kid, but kind of grew up around them because my uncle and aunt had a host of old cars. They lived out on the farm, and they didn't believe in having the newest car on the market, so they drove around in old cars. And this was in the 70s. And my uncle did have a work truck, an old Chevy. I think it was I want to say 53. And I found out what that little button does. And back then you just turned on the ignition switch, and then you hit that little button on the floor, and that was mechanically attached to the starter in the engine, and that would turn the engine over. Okay, I got that part done. Now I may have to do some touch-up painting on the seat here. I'm not sure how this is going to look once I snip it off. The paint is still just a little tiny bit on the tacky side, even though it's been sitting for about 2 hours now. And now I did the dash in the door panels in the same paint that I did the body in, this pearl blue Createx, because the dash is supposed to match the exterior, blah blah blah. On the seat portions, I did apple barrel real blue, and I had to put like 3 coats on there to get it to cover real well, but there it is. It's just slightly contrasted with the pearl blue paint, just slightly different, a little bit darker and non-metallic. When I was doing this, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to go with this blue like this, or if I wanted to go with a buckskin kind of color, which would have been fitting for this era of vehicle. But I decided to go ahead and do the blue just because I wanted it to be blue. The rest of the truck is blue, why not? So let's see how that fits down in there. Oh, beauty. That fits right in there. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Right down in there. Alright, let's get this finished up. I don't even know why I painted that edge. What a waste. And trim off these little tabs. I'm not going to paint over those because they're not going to be seen. Thankfully, they're hidden by the where the seat meets. But I want them to kind of be smooth. Okay. Oh, should I leave that so you can flip the seat? Or should I just glue it in place? Nah, I'll leave it so you can flip the seat. What the heck? So, ooh, that's coming out kind of fast. Gravity. Let's see if I can spread that out. Put a little bit more on there than I really wanted to. And because of that, I may end up gluing the seat back in place anyway. Alright. Because should I paint that? Or should I just leave it white? I'll just leave it. It'll be our little secret. Okay. Now I am going to have to do some touch-up painting on the steering wheel because these connection points are really kind of big. snip it off this way. I don't like how this is on the tree. Because it makes it a little bit awkward to snip off. Oop, never see that piece again. There we go. Oh, dang it. Okay, we're going to have to do some touch-up painting on that. Took a chunk out of the steering wheel because of that thing being so big. Doggone it. Slightly annoyed. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. There we go. Use this brush. Not pleased. I'm not a mold maker for model cars, but I'm not even an engineer, so I don't really know what goes into making a mold for plastic injection. But I would like to think that this could have been put together a little bit better. Most model cars could be, anyway. If they really thought out about how the end appearance would be, instead of just, you know, mashing something together. I know they're not, it's not like that, but if they had a little bit of insight as to the finished product and how that would look, I think they could engineer the molds a little bit differently so that the take for example, chrome bumpers on cars. They always have them attached to the trees in a way that when you snip them off the tree, there's always that little bit of mark on the bumper that shows up. And this is going to be a fun job. And because of those attachment points, they show up and they look bad. And yeah, I could probably get like Molotow pen or whatever and cover that up, but now you have to sand that smooth in order to cover it up, and now you're opening up more chrome, and it's just a mess. And if it was just something simple, it was a simple way to do it, where that, I'm just babbling. You know, if they could get that to come in from, like, say, behind the bumper, or maybe on one of the mounting points, instead of on the surface that you're going to see, then that would be better. That's the point I'm trying to make, instead of just babbling. I'm just clearing a little bit of the paint off of this so the glue will have something to adhere to. I'll set that aside for a second. Now let's see how this is going to fit. One thing I've noticed about this Createx paint, it dries really fast. Even when I sprayed it, it dried up pretty quick. So that did make it kind of nice. Oop. Let's take that back off for a second. Put a little bit of, yeah, okay. Now it doesn't want to come out at all. There we go. Just a little dab. The steering wheel fits on really nice and tight. They didn't provide a hole for the shifter to attach to. So this is going to be a little bit interesting. Would have been nice to have a hole right there. I suppose I could have drilled one. It's too late for all of that. I haven't second gear, what the heck. Alright, let's let that set for a little bit and let that glue set up, and I'll be right back. Alright fellas, the interior is complete. I decided to go ahead and paint the back of that seat simply because when it's like that, I'm pretty certain you can see the back of that when it's, you know, through the back windows of the cab. And I just noticed that I need to paint this edge here. I missed that when I painted it earlier. Let me get those couple things finished up. And the next is the bed, which I already have the wood painted. I'm going to attempt to put bare metal foil down on the strips here, the separator strips. I don't know how successful this is going to be. I'm just going to give it a try. So let's touch up that paint, then we'll get started on the pickup box. And break this paint out again. I only need just a little bit. The stuff is so thin because it's airbrush paint. It's so thin that it just goes on nice. It just flows right on. And you just go all the way down. There we go, all finished up. Now that's all set. Okay, to start with, let me get my good blade out. I'm going to cut really narrow strips, because if you look, these aren't very wide, so if I cut very narrow strips, I won't have to do as much trimming when I get it in here. That's the goal, is to, when you use this, only use just what you need to use, so you're not wasting a whole bunch and you don't have to trim as much. I think that should do it. Now I'm doing this by eyeball. I'm not measuring it, but if I was to give that a measurement, I would guess and say probably a 1/16 of an inch. So let's give it a, I'll go just a little bit longer. Then I can trim that off the back side of it. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is going to work. This is purely experimental. I was thinking about going and getting like a paint pen with an ultrafine tip or something along that lines, but I'm lazy. I didn't want to make the drive. Oh, that's perfect. Lay it right down in there, right between the lines there. Oh, that's perfect. All right, let me get my burnishing rag out. Now this may be a little tedious to do, but I think the end result is going to be fantastic. Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, probably going to have to cut a few lines of foil. Probably going to get, I'm going to guess and say 3 per line, so there's 7 lines in there, plus I got to do the side pieces, and that's going to require something a little bit wider, but yeah. Okay, get the right knife here. So even though I'm cutting that just a little bit longer, I'm not wasting a whole bunch. I am wasting a little bit, but let me show you a trick. A lot of times when you're doing long stripes like this, they tend to curl up on you. If you do it like I just did, yeah, you still get a little curl in there, but it's not as bad. I've had some of them just barrel right up on me, and oh, come on. I know I stuck you down. Yeah, I couldn't have guessed that any better as far as the width of that strip. Yeah, this is an old piece of a t-shirt. Been using it for quite a while for burnishing BMF. It works really well. It's thin enough that it allows me to get a decent amount of pressure down on that. It also helps shine it up a little bit. Yeah, that's looking fantastic. All right. Alright fellas, the bare metal foil is finished, and I think that looks really sharp in there. One thing about this Createx paint, it is very susceptible to handling. So if you don't have it clear coated, like I don't, the paint rubs off pretty easy. So I'm gonna hop over to the paint booth. Let's lay down some clear coat on this, and hopefully that stops the paint from wearing off until I can get the final assemblies done. We're coming into the home stretch, so I just got to pop the fenders on this, and then we'll go over, shoot some clear, and decals and final assembly. Welcome back to the final on this 1950 Chevrolet 3100 Union 76 sponsored pickup from AMT. Now I know I say this with every video, but this truck really went together really well, for the most part anyway. There were a few exceptions. One of them was my fault, and one of them wasn't. The first one was the chrome trim rings and how they were mounted on the sprue tree. They were mounted in between two large runners on the tree. So when you went in there with the little snippers that I have, and a lot of guys have these. A lot of guys have these. Some guys don't. Well, when I went in with those to snip those trim rings off the tree, because of the fat runners, the large runners, it didn't give, a lot of times the runner will flex and you won't damage your part. Well, I wasn't thinking. It was two large runners. I just went in there and snipped, and when I snipped, it crushed the trim ring. And I said, well, okay, let me try the other end. I tried the other end. Same thing happened. So, you know, what you have to do, and my advice to you on this is, when you go to take those trim rings off the tree, if you decide to use them, take a sharp number 11 blade, a new one, whatever, and very gently cut those from the large runners. Don't try to go in there with any kind of snippers or anything like that and try to cut those from the tree, because like I said, it'll just destroy the trim ring. I did manage to get all 4 of them off the runner, but like I said, I damaged 2 of them. I managed to salvage those and put them on the truck. One of them went together pretty well. The other one is pretty noticeable that it's damaged, but if I don't tell you where they are, you might not see it. Secondly, and this one's my fault, it's the rear axle. Now normally the rear axle, when you have a separate set of leaf springs and rear axle, normally the rear axle goes on the bottom of the leaf springs. Well, that's not the case with this truck. Now this truck has your normal leaf springs, and then it has like helper leaf springs. The axle doesn't go on the bottom of the leaf springs, it goes between the leaf springs and the helper leaf springs. When you put them on the bottom of the leaf springs, it jacks the back end of the truck way up, like half an inch taller than what you're seeing there. After I got it together and I looked at it, I was like, this just doesn't seem like it's sitting right. It's marked on the instruction sheet on how to put that axle on, but if you're not really paying close attention to the direction sheet, your normal instinct kicks in and tells you, well, the axle goes on the bottom of the leaf springs, and that's wrong. So when it comes to putting that rear axle together, pay close attention to the direction sheet, and you'll see where it tells you to put it between the leaf springs and the helper leaf springs. Other than those 2 things, this kit went together beautifully, and honestly, it does have a ton of potential. You could do anything with this. You could turn it into a street rod or a race truck, or anything custom. It's got a ton of potential. So if you haven't built this truck yet, you're missing out on a terrific build. Well, this kit is done, and I certainly hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. It helps the YouTube algorithm to share my content, which helps my channel grow. If you have any questions or comments, please write those in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to respond as soon as possible. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, or you can drop me a line at scaleautoguy@gmail.com. If you want more videos like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button below, and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching Scale Auto Guy's Workbench, and I'll see you on the next build.